Hey everybody, Zero here, back again with another kooky album review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the fourth studio album by my close friend, who also happens to be an incredibly talented singer and rapper, Nate the Space God. This project is titled Her Name Was Argyra, which ties to a certain Greek mythological lore and actually is the concept of the album itself. Argyria was a sea nymph who was incredibly loved by Solemnos, I think it's how you pronounce it, who died of grief when she abandoned him, and he became transformed into a local stream. And on Nate's most emotional and heartfelt project to date, we're given a lot of lyrical topics that Nate has explored in the past, such as heartbreak and grief, but he's never explored them this deeply and profoundly. We're also given a whole variety of sounds that Nate has either never explored at all or has explored very little of, such as pop, lo-fi, and there's even some blues elements thrown in there. This album almost feels like the continuation of his second studio album, Aether, in terms of the stylistic experimentation and production, minus the concepts, of course, because the concept is very different. And this works very well for me, because Aether's, to date, my favorite work Nate has ever put out. Drowning in Rain is the first track off of this Feels trip, and it's a very solid lo-fi track that ultimately sets one of the various tones for this project, sorry. For Nate's first time ever doing a straight lo-fi track, he definitely delivers a bucket full of emotion and feelings to the listener simply just by putting in his own. His hazy, emotional, tired sounding singing is backed by a somber and hazy piano over a hazy lo-fi drum beat that really gets you hooked on the sad, raw, honest lyrics. I think one of the reasons I love this track so much is because of how much I relate to it at the moment, especially the beginning lyric, "My tears have no place in your heart." That really hits me and I relate to it a lot. I give this track a 5 out of 5. Holy Trail Ice Fawn almost sounds like a track that could have been on his third studio album, Earth 708. It's definitely the most typical Nate the Space God sounding track on this album, with Nate's calm, mellow style of rapping over a xylophonic boom bap instrumental. At first, I really didn't like this track because of the sudden change of style and sound from the first track, but I do have to remember that Nate is an experimental artist, and he's willing to prove that at any given time. I give this track a 4 out of 5 because I do love the style of it and how nostalgic of Earth 708 it makes me. The only problem I have with it is how short it is, which made it a tad bit repetitive, especially at the beginning and towards the end. Peachtree is the most experimental track off of this album, being a pop rap track with some blues thrown in the mix. There's a lot in your face at once, and the instrumental sometimes drowns out Nate's high-pitched vocals, especially towards the end, but there's still a lot to love about this track. You have to appreciate the fact that Nate is trying something different with his style and stepping out of his comfort zone, and because of that, I give this track a 4 out of 5. Section 8 is not a bad track by any means. It sounds very good, but the mixing is so bad. The instrumental literally drowns out Nate's vocals to the point where his vocals are completely unintelligible. It almost sounds like Nate just did background vocals throughout the whole track and forgot to insert the foreground vocals. And because of this sad mishap, I have to give this track a 2 out of 5. I like the sound of this track, obviously the mixing is just really bad. Clear Glass, originally called KKKKKKKKKKK, or continue on, is a track that shows the experimentation of this album very well. In the beginning, you have a simple Tyler the Creator Igor type beat, which Nate takes a lot of inspiration from, by the way, that Nate is rapping over about his mental health and pills. And then after the cry for help in the middle, the second half of the song switches to a very confusing style. It's a pop blues trap instrumental that sounds like it could be the closing to a Tyler the Creator album, but Nate isn't really rapping that much. He's more or less singing with dragged out vocals, and then he raps over the normal instrumental in the last 10 seconds. This track was kind of going all over the place, and it made it a really confusing listen for me, and it made it really hard. It hooked me in, but not in the way that I wanted it to. It hooked me in almost in a bad way, for a reason which I know, but I don't think Nate would want me to say. So because of that, I give this track a 3 out of 5. Hope is another lo-fi song with only rapping that sounds like it was recorded on a distant telephone, and I thought that was really weird, along with more background vocals over a bluesy lo-fi piano beat. I was rather disappointed with this track, mainly because we weren't given much to listen to or be hooked into, and because of that, I give this track a 2.5 out of 5, and the reason I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 5 is because I like the instrumental. Curious Interlude is a really interesting interlude that gets you hyped for the rest of the album. It sounds very mysterious in a way. It almost sounds like a ballroom piano with the distant and unintelligible vocals in the background. It makes you think to yourself, damn, what's Nate about to do? What is this man about to drop? Like, what kind of good shit is he going to give us? I give this track a 5 out of 5, mainly just because of how much it reeled me in. No Calls Running is one of the best tracks on this album, and it's not hard to see why it's Nate's favorite track off the album. The happy-go-lucky instrumental contrasts beautifully with the dark, depressing lyrics, and it makes you want to pay attention to both, and it hooks you in. It hooks you in so easily, and it hooked me in so easily. I give this track a proud 5 out of 5, and it's one of my favorite tracks off the album. Aphrodite is yet another Earth 708 sounding track. It's a typical rap track with Nate talking once again about his mental health and how he puts raw emotion into his tracks when he really tries. And he does not need to confirm that. And he doesn't need to confirm that or physically say it because we already know that he does. Nate delivers so much emotion into his songs. And even though this track isn't very emotional, you can still tell he's putting so much heart into it by just simply saying that he does and by passionately talking about his feelings and how much he loves putting emotion into his music. I give this track a 5 out of 5. Okay, Recall Disgusted. Recall Disgusted are two very different tracks. And while this is my least favorite track on the album, I do enjoy what he's doing with it. For Recall, he's taking a stab at the style he's worst with, melodic trap, and I really appreciate that. Like, I really like that he's trying something that he knows he's not good with. And on Disgusted, he's once again running it back with the style he's most profound with, pop rap. I actually do enjoy the Disgusted half of this track, but the Recall half of this track is purely unlistenable, mainly just because Nate isn't good at pop trap, not melodic trap, and he knows himself that he's not good at melodic trap, but I do appreciate that he was still willing to give it a try, and I'm glad that Nate doesn't do melodic trap regularly, especially because he knows it isn't his thing. For the first time ever in my Nate the Space God review history, I'm giving Recall a 0 out of 5. That's my first 0 out of 5 I've ever given Nate, and I'm giving Disgusted a 4 out of 5. 1617 is easily the best closer track Nate has ever put out in the history of his music career. It's not a hip-hop track in the slightest. It's actually an emotional piano rock closer that could definitely tie into a future album Nate puts out. I have to say, though, it makes me sad that this is the last track on the album because I would absolutely love to hear Nate do this style more often. He's a wonderful singer, and hopefully he shows that more in his future work. I give this track a 5 out of 5. I love the style of this track, and I love that Nate is just purely singing because he's a great singer. To sum things up, I would say this is a really good album. It's not Nate's best work to date, but there is a lot of fun and excitement to be had here. I love that Nate is branching out to different styles and experimenting with his work, even if it doesn't always deliver. And I love the emotion and feeling and heartfulness he gives. I give this album a 3.5 out of 5, and I'm so excited to hear the follow-up album, which is going to be a very special one, by the way, and you'll see why. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of Her Name Was Argyra. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and please stick around for my next review because it's one of my favorite ones I've done yet. And of course, if you guys have requests for any other reviews, you can email me, hit me up on Instagram, or leave a comment in the comment section below. As always, guys, my name is Zero. Stay safe during this dark time. I love you guys. I'm sending my prayers and my heart to you guys, and I will see you guys in the next review.